Hey kids, so we've been for the last 9 weeks learning about what the Bible is and who God is, very basic things, kind of setting the groundwork for what we're going to start doing now. We're going to start talking about what's in the Bible, okay? We've been talking about what the Bible is. We haven't really looked at what's in the Bible and all the stories and stuff going on. So that's what we're going to look at. And you know the Bible, how much of it is true? All of it, that's right. All of the Bible is true. And did you know that all of the Bible lays out all of the full span of history from beginning to end? Now, it doesn't have every detail in there, right? It doesn't have what you're going to eat for lunch tomorrow or something like that, right? But it has from beginning to end what happens in history. And today I'm going to teach you about the seven C's of history. The seven C's are creation, corruption, catastrophe, confusion, Christ, consummation. All right, so those are the seven C's. Okay, the seven C's, just like there's seven C's in the world, right? That's what we call them. Seven C's. So the seven C's of history, right? So we need to understand the whole story in order to understand any part of it, right? I can't just pop in the middle, right? What if I popped in, like this story right here is Joseph in the coat of many colors. What if I popped in right at the middle? It didn't tell you what happened. And this is what Joseph said: the 3 branches of the vine represent 3 days. Doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense because we don't know the beginning of the story. And so in order to know all of the story, in order to know the middle or the end or the kind of middle beginning, we need to know the very beginning. We need to know the whole story, okay? So Genesis 1:31, this is our first C, and that's creation. This is what happens. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Right? So God finishes his creation, and God looks at everything and he goes, wow, this is all very good. Now, who can name the 2 people that he created in Genesis? The first 2 people. Adam and Eve, that's right. And what did God say about his creation when he looked at it? What did he say about it? It was very what? Very good. That's right. And God created all things very good. Now, just one chapter later, we see the next C, and that's corruption. And then it gets to the point, it climaxes. It gets worse and worse and worse. Everything gets worse. And in Genesis 6:5, it says this: the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Right? So that's our second C. The second C is corruption. Okay, you guys know what that word means? Corruption. It means something went wrong. Something's gone bad. Right? When you leave some food in the refrigerator, or you leave like an apple out on the counter, you eat the apple, you leave the apple core out. If you watch it overnight, it'll turn brown and kind of gross. The apple core has gone from being good to being corrupt. Right? It's gone bad, and that's what happens to mankind. It's gotten corrupt. Right? It's gotten bad to the point where everything that people think and everything that people do is evil. That's where we've come to the second C. So the first one is creation. The second one is corruption. Everything is corrupt. The next one is catastrophe. In Genesis 6:7 is what it says: so the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. So this is what happened. God looks at man. He says, at the beginning, he made it all, and he says it's very good. And then Adam and Eve messed up, and then everything got a lot worse, and there was a lot of corruption. And then catastrophe comes when God says, catastrophe is like a really bad thing that happens to us. And God says, I'm going to take them out. There's nothing good left anymore. And so God sends the flood. That's the story of Noah's Ark. He sends the flood, and he wipes out most of the earth. Animals, most people. All except for Noah's family. The next story is about confusion. And this happens in Genesis 11. So these people, confusion. You guys know what it's like to be confused? Right? So if I started talking to you in a different language, you would be confused, right? If I started talking Spanish, I can't speak Spanish, but you'd be confused, right? If I said the word like supralapsarianism, you guys know what that word means? No, it's a confusing word, right? If you don't know what it means. That's what confusion means. God gave everybody different languages. So in Genesis 11, verse 7, it says this: "Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." So these people tried to build a tower, and they tried to build a tower so high that they got to heaven, and they made a great name for themselves, and they could be like God. That's what they wanted to do. Okay, so this is our fourth C. We have creation, then corruption, then catastrophe, and now confusion. Confusion is the fourth C. And God confused their language, right? So they all had one language before, and now they all have different languages. They can't work together. They can't build this tower anymore because God has confused them. Okay, and then mankind from Genesis now to the rest of the Old Testament is evil, and they keep messing up, and they keep messing up, and God keeps telling them, "Well, I'm going to save you, I'm going to save you," but they keep messing up and keep messing up. And then we get to our next C, and the next C is Christ. And in Matthew 1:21 it says, "They shall call his name Jesus, and he shall save his people from their sins." We learned last week about the gospel, the good news, that God loved the world so much that even though we were broken, even though we had black hearts, God sent his only son to die for us and to save us from our sins. That's the good news. That's the good news, that Jesus came. So we have creation where everything is really good, and then we have corruption where everything is really bad. And then catastrophe where God floods the earth in his anger. And then we have confusion where we messed up again, and God had to confuse us and send us all different ways, and we couldn't speak to each other. And now we have Christ, who's come to bring all things together and has come to rescue us from our confusion and from our sin. That's what Christ came to do. So our C's up to this point are creation, corruption, catastrophe, confusion, and now Christ. And now our last one, and then we have the cross. Second to last one, the cross. We learned last week what happened on the cross. Jesus died on the cross. So Christ comes, and when he's a baby, they'll say he shall save his people from the sins. And then he goes to the cross, and that's the sixth one. He goes to the cross, and there he dies for us. He dies for us. He died. Jesus, God himself, died for us. And then lastly is what we call consummation. That's a big word. Consummation. It just means the last thing to happen. He brings all of it together. Consummation means it's final, it's done. He's rescued it all. So remember, the first C is creation. It's all really good. And then corruption, it all gets really bad really quick. Really bad really quick. And then catastrophe, God wipes everything out. And then confusion, God separates everyone and gives them different languages. And then Christ, and he's come to save us from our sins. And then the cross, and he dies for our sins. And now consummation, Jesus rescues all people from their sins. This is what Revelation 21:4 says. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. That's the end of history. When Jesus comes and he saves his people from everything. He rescues us. He pulls us out. So there's no more falling and hurting yourself. There's no more breaking your arm or pain. There's no more crying. There's no more, because Jesus rescues us from it. So our 5 C's of all of history, right? This is all of history from beginning to end. Creation, God creates all things and it's very good. And then corruption, and it all becomes very bad. And then catastrophe, where God wipes out a lot of mankind with the flood. And then confusion, where there's a bunch of different languages. And then Christ, who's born and comes to save us from our sins. And then cross, which is the peak of it all, the center point. He's died for his people. And now consummation, that's the end of all things. That's where Jesus comes and he rescues us from all things. It says, no more crying, no more pain. You've been rescued now. Okay, so say them again with me. Ready? Creation, corruption, catastrophe, confusion, Christ, cross, and consummation. Those are the 7 C's of history. And that's what we're going to learn about the rest of this lesson. Now I'm going to turn it over to our teachers.